In this video, I will explain a typical React application structure. So in typical React application, there is an index.tsx file. If you create the React app using create React app npx command, and from there will be app. We can pass the props to the app component, and props is basically the attributes and its values. So it can be anything. Okay, it can be an object, string, number, etc. And then app gets rendered. So if you look at the app, this is how the typical structure of any component looks like in React. So at the top, you have to import models. For example, we have imported the React model here, use effect and use state. These functions we have imported, and we can also import the CSS as well as images. So this is the syntax: import styles from CSS model, import logo from the logo.svg. So that's how you can import the images and the CSS files. And if you want to import another component, you will have to import using this syntax. But remember that you need to provide the correct case. For example, if L is capital, small, then you have to use small here. Like you have to go to the file name and then check the case of each particular letter, and you have to use the same. If it is the local model, for example, these files are local that I have created, so you can put /. So you have to do the relative path for the local models. If you are importing from the standard model which you install using npm or yarn, you have to give the actual name. You don't need to specify /. And then there is a function, main function, which gets called, and that is a component. Okay, that returns the component. Basically, it will have the return statement. So each component needs to return some JSX expression. JSX is just like a JavaScript expressions, we can say, where it allows you to write HTML within JavaScript. So this is a JavaScript file you can see here, and within that JavaScript file, we are writing the HTML. So a function component has got a return statement, and it has to return the JSX expression. So JSX expression can be a simple HTML, and we can embed a JavaScript as well in that using this curly bracket syntax. So here you can see we are using this paragraph element from the HTML, and then this particular thing is JSX expressions. We can use it in the return statement or the JSX syntax. And you can render normal HTML here. Also remember that you can add the click handlers as well. So normally in HTML you can use on click, but since it is JSX, you have to use on click with C being a capital letter. And then that is how you can pass the handler. Okay, so you have to use the lambda expression. I prefer the lambda expressions because that is the standard way to write the handlers. Finally, you have to export our app or the function that we have created. Now you can see any component takes the props. So dynamic nature of the component is possible because of props and state. So props are passed to the function. You can see here we have passed this props. So the parent can pass the props here, and then we can use it in your JSX expressions. For example, I'm using this props and printing it on the when the component gets rendered, it will be printed in the UI. So props is one thing. Now if you want to use the state, you can use this use state hook. So this is a hook, one of the hook that React provides. Use effect and use state. So if you want to apply state for the function component, you can use the use state. This is the initial value of the state, and later on if you want to modify, you can use the set count method. So it is user defined. You can give any name here, and just to be a standard, you have to use the set and then whatever is the state that you want to change. And here is the state that you can use when printing into the JSX. Now use effect, it is used for implementing the component did mount, component will mount, will unmount. Those kind of lifecycle methods can be implemented using this use effect. So this gets called whenever the component gets rendered and it is ready. So at that point of time, this particular statement will be executed, and it has got this return statement. So this statement gets called when just before component will be unmounting. So those lifecycle methods can be implemented using use effect. Now this use effect, this particular method gets statement gets called every time when the component gets rendered. But sometimes we don't want this function to be executed every time component gets rendered. So in that case, you have to pass the second argument to this use effect, and that is empty array. So when we pass the empty array, that means this particular statement will be executed only once. Okay. In subsequent render, so this function will not get invoked. And there is another variation. You can pass the state as well as props here. So what it means is that whenever some state or prop is changing, we need to call this. So that is the significance of these things. And if you keep it empty, do not pass the second argument, it will get invoked every time. So I will just show you what simple React application I created. This is the increment counter, decrement counter example. And just we click on this one, count is gonna be incremented. And then component gets rendered. As you can see, the component gets rendered and then it gets the actual value here that is getting printed. So this is the app component. Now if we need to add some child components, so we can add it like this one. Say we have got another child component, say child1, like this. And then you will have to create one child1 component, child1.jsx file, and in that similar kind of structure you have to use. And also don't forget to import it using // and then that particular file name. So you don't need to specify extension for the JavaScript files or the component files. You can just put /child1. And then what will happen is that whenever this component, app component gets rendered, the child component will also get rendered. So a component can have multiple child components, and all those child components will get rendered when the parent component gets rendered. And not just child, the children of those child components are also get rendered. So basically the subtree, entire components in that subtree will get rendered. So that's it. That's how you can design your React application. If you have any questions, do not forget to put the comments down there in the video.